you're looking at a pile of components from a small kit from Banggood, where else? And it's actually, as you can see, there's a whole bunch of LEDs there. He says trying to adjust the camera a bit. And you've got a capacitor. We have an STC chip. See if I can focus on that. See what it says. It doesn't want to play ball, does it? Or does it? At any rate, it's a 15W201S package. We have riser connectors, socket for the chip. We have a small barrel jack for the power supply. That's problem number 1 of 2. I'll come on to those in a minute. And then we have the PCB, and as you can see, the hourglass shape that is formed by the LEDs. I can't remember how many LEDs it is, about 30 odd I think. Yeah, so this is first of all a USB powered device, but they provided a barrel connector, and I don't have anything like that. I don't have a cable that will power that. I'm pretty sure I have cables I have barrel jack cables, but they're usually bigger. I don't think I've got one this small. So that is a problem. The second problem is there is no indication on the board where this capacitor goes. But logically, it is for smoothing the power supply, in which case I'm guessing it's bridging across those two connectors there. That would be my view. As far as the power supply is concerned, incidentally, the riser that comes with it here, I'm guessing will go into here. Now, I don't know if I don't think I can provide power here. It's got ground there, but I don't know. Any road up. I presume that could be for programming the chip if you've got the right equipment. But I don't have a power supply, so that's going to be interesting. And they've not provided one. This kit was £2.50, so I'm not really complaining. But you know, it's just that you don't have all the components that you need when you start work on it, and you don't realise it. Push to make switch there, which I think is probably to adjust different modes of display. And we also have a good old-fashioned mechanical on-off switch, which will go in there like that. So any road up. Yeah, so my big problem is going to be the power supply. I don't have anything to power it. I don't know if it matters whether, I would imagine there is a polarity. So based on the barrel jack connections, that's going to be positive and that's going to be negative. As I say, I really don't know whether that capacitor is supposed to go across there. Logic tells me that it should, but there's the, as I say, that's negative, I'm pretty sure, and that's going off to ground, I think, there. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. So the first thing to do is to solder up all the LEDs. I think I could do the chip, but I think I'm going to do the LEDs, and the reason for that is I want to get them all nice and level, And it's easier to do that with any other components on there that could be taller than the LEDs themselves. So the LEDs, the negative will go, we want to go that way, won't it? So shorter leg is the cathode. Was it an anode? I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it goes that way around. Like that. And just splay the legs out a bit and solder them up. In fact, they fit in there reasonably well without having to hold them down. But the way I do it is just solder one pin, then put your finger on the back, and then heat that solder up again, make sure it flattens down onto the board, let that cool, let your finger go and do the other one. I'll show you in a minute. So I'm just going to double check, because I don't think there are any instructions with this. Frankly, he doesn't need them, although I just need to be clear on where that capacitor goes. So I'm just going to see if I can find any instructions. If not, we should just get on with the build and see what happens. Well, I couldn't find any instructions at all on the internet. I didn't spend a huge amount of time looking. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play it by ear. I've still got no idea how I'm going to power this up. I'm thinking about seeing if I've got a spare USB connector, whether it's micro or mini or whatever, and using that. I can never remember which the plus and minus on the outside connectors of those, but I might be able to hack something. But yeah, that's a bit annoying, to say the least, but never mind. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start putting all these LEDs in, and my soldering iron doesn't want to play. So there we go. That's actually stayed in there quite neatly. So I just soldered one pin, and the LED itself is now nice and flat against the board, which is what you want. Now, what I'm actually minded to do, let's just solder the other pin in. What I'm actually minded to do is to put a pin at each corner of the board. Sorry, to put an LED at each corner of the board, so it acts as something that I can stand the board down on when I'm soldering in other LEDs, and hopefully they'll stay in nice and flat in the process. That's the theory. Right, so let me get my cheap, nasty, completely and utterly useless wire cutters and trim off those legs on that particular LED, which is now installed. So like I say, what I'm going to do is whack one of these in each corner. I know you can't see anything at the moment, sorry about that. I'm actually using a different camera at the moment. I still haven't got a decent setup for the camera at all. And I've tried various stands and holders and you know what, and I still haven't worked out anything decent. And I need to sort of pull my finger out and come up with a final logical solution to sort out how I mount my camera when I'm doing these videos, because at the moment all you're seeing is an horrendous mess. So which way round does that one go? Right. I'm just trying to get this last one in. Right, there we go. Sorry about that, or as I say, bit of a mess. So right, now I've got one at each corner of the LED of the board. What I shall do is just solder one pin as before. I'm not going to be able to solder all of these LEDs on camera. Apart from anything else, it would be apocalyptically boring for you. and secondly, with the camera in the way and my horrible eyesight, it's just not going to work, and it's all going to go disastrously wrong. So there we go. So now I'm just going to make sure that each of these are flat on the board. That's by pressing it in like that with my thumb, heating up the pin that I'd put some solder on, and that makes sure it's nice and flat against the board. I'm just going to do that with the rest of them and go round, and then when I've done that, I've then got a stand which I can then put other when I put other LEDs in, getting right the right way would be useful. Like that. There's a slight lip on these LEDs that doesn't want to go through the holes. The holes aren't really quite wide enough. There we go. So, so when I'm soldering that one, theoretically that should be dead flat, that LED, and I could actually solder both those joints and be fairly comfortable that the LED is flat against the board, because I've got an LED at each of the corners acting as feet to keep the board level. That's the idea, anyway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to solder all these LEDs together, and then I'll get back to you. Right, okay, we've got all the LEDs installed now. So there they are, that's how it looks, and you can see the hourglass shape a lot more easily there. So there's my soldering, not much to look at. Now, I've had a bit of a thought about the power supply. Like I say, I do not have anything that's going to fit that. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to get a USB cable, one with a micro USB on the end. I've got loads of those, and just snip the end on and solder the positive and negatives directly to these two terminals. I really do not know what's going on there. I really think that's where the capacitor belongs, this capacitor. But I can't find anything on the internet to tell me one way or another. So yeah, I'm going to have to think about that. What I think I'll probably do is set it up with without the capacitor and see how it goes, and see what the results like, and if it does need smoothing, then I'll put that capacitor on there, which I'm guessing that's what it's there for, but who knows. Right, so next thing to do is to solder in the chip socket, I think, and as is always the case with these things, let's try to bring a bit more light on the subject. You've got a little notch here on the socket itself, which corresponds with the notch on the board, so that will go in there like that. How bent are these pins? You know, there's a bent pin there. It's always the case with these when they are flown or shipped all the way from China. They're going to get crushed and bashed about a bit. So that's just the way it is. There we go. So that's in the board. So let's solder this up. He says dropping his soldering iron on the floor. Right, okay, so let's just solder one pin like that. So that's just the one pin there soldered. What I'm going to do is then just press it down, heat it up again, just to make sure that it is all flat and square with the board, which it is. So I have to keep on focusing this camera. But what I've got here is basically an iPad. Well, not basically, but it is an iPad Mini I'm using the camera from that. Sometimes I use my iPhone, and I do actually have a GoPro, which is bloody hideous for doing YouTube videos like this. It ain't designed for it at all. So my choices are the iPad Mini or the iPhone, and the iPhone is a superior result, but the iPad Mini kind of just stands up on its own, using a case obviously, and it's a little less hassle from that respect, but I do need to get a decent setup. Right, let's have a look at the results there. Nah, it's alright. It'll connect. So might as well push in the look at the chip now. Look at the state of the pins on that. They are bent and buckled and ugh. So let me sort of bend them in a bit, just by, so you can see on that side I've just pressed them against the table, so I can get it in shot this time. Just press them against the table. Like that. And then hopefully I can get all of this seated in neatly enough, like that, and like that. Yeah, okay, so that's the chip installed. While we're here, let's put in push to make switch. It's the clicky button. As I said, I'm guessing that selects different modes. What those modes are, I've gone and bent that too much now. What those modes are, I have no idea, because as I say, I can't find any instructions for it. Never mind. They're only a bit of fun. In terms of costs, I mean, you got to sort of, again, I always say this, I have to hand it to them, that the cost of these things is just tiny. This one, how much did I pay for this? £2.50, I think it was. £2.60 possibly. Very, very, very small amount of money. So that's, you know, looking what, just over $3 or somewhere in that vicinity. So you know, it really is a very small amount of money. There we go. So that's the switch installed. I don't think I'm going to bother with the riser pins, these guys, which will go in there, because I've just got no need to hook it up to an Arduino or anything like that, even if indeed it is possible to do that. So next thing is the switch. Let's have a quick look at this switch. This is purely, yeah, it's just one position, so on and off, I'm guessing. So let's put it in the off position. And that holds in there quite tight, so I can just give myself a bit more solder. This is the solder that I use. It's a complete rat's nest, because it broke off the spindle, the plastic spindle at the other end, and the whole thing just went to hell. But I've got tons of it, and I'm not going to throw it away just because it's fallen off the spindle. I mean, this stuff's going to last me years. For, you know, as a basic hobbyist, I'm really not going to need that much solder, and it's very, very thin stuff, so it's quite nice to work with, because you don't overdo it on the solder. And as I've said before, I always try to use a fairly fine tip soldering iron for these sorts of kits. There was one kit I did in my last video, which was a fidget spinner, and I had to solder the bearing. It's got a bearing. I had to solder it to the main board, and that required an awful lot of solder and an awful lot of heat, because the thing just acted as a giant heat sink. So that's the switch put in. Okay, what do we got? What are we left with? Let's switch that off. Well, actually, what we're left with is the power jack, which I'm not going to use, and the mysterious capacitor. Value 334, which I should know what that means, but I don't. Does that go across there? Is that where it belongs? I don't know is the answer. Where do we put that? I'm going to leave it off for now. So what I am going to do is find one of the crappier USB cables that I've got. And cut it down. I think this one might do actually. Isn't particularly good quality. So if it feels like it's good quality, I won't use it. Actually, that one does seem decent quality. Hang on a minute, let me find one. Okay, so I have found the candidate. So you can see here, this is just a micro USB cable. So what I'm going to do, so I'm going to snip the end off of that. You can go in the bin. And I am going to extract from this the positive and negative lines. Best pair of wire strippers in the world, your teeth. Right, so we have got a positive, a negative, and two data cables, transmit and receive. And as far as the data cables are concerned, we don't need those, because we're just after a 5-volt supply. So I'm just going to strip these with the best wire strippers in the world, i.e. my teeth, which is why my teeth are so shite. Which reminds me, I've actually got to go to the dentist tomorrow. For him to no doubt find all sorts of things wrong with my teeth. Which is probably fair enough, seeing as I just use them for wire strippers. Right, so what I'm going to do is I am going to tin up these wires. I'm going to try to anyway. I'm not very good at this. There we go. That'll do. Let's try and spread it about a bit. Come on. I've got a really great blob of solder on the end of it. Is no use whatsoever. Right, so I think I decided on here that the ground, where did I decide ground was? Yeah, so that one there will be positive, that one there will be negative, and what I actually think I'll do, there's a couple of ways I could do this. Right, I think what I'm going to do actually is I want to cut off a bit more of this plastic. That's probably a bit too much. I can't do this in front of the camera. Bear with me. Okay, yeah, what I did is I just cut off a lot more of the plastic covering from the wire and fed through longer wires. And the reason I've done that is so that I can tie a knot with the idea of them therefore acting as stressful or strain relief on the wire. So if they do get pulled on, they're not going to get ripped out from the board. Well, that's the idea anyway. So let's just try it with this one on the positive. If I can get the knot closer to the board, which is what I want to do. Go on. Getting there, getting there. Where's my tweezers? Yeah, that'll do. That's not bad. You know, it's going to kind of work and it's going to kind of not work because I've now got to solder that wire through the very hole it's come through. So is this really a good idea? Probably not. Oh, I've started, so I'll finish. Oh dear, stupid ideas, warts and all. It seemed like a good idea at the time until I decided to think it through. And then when I thought it through, I realised that this is actually a bloody stupid idea. But I've not quite committed myself, but I'm going to. I'm just going to go ahead and do it now because I'm bloody minded like that. Bring that knot down as close as I can to the board. Oh, sorry, you're not seeing anything, are you? Apologies. Right, so I've now got to get the black wire soldered to its pad and the red wire soldered to its pad, which probably means I'm just going to be melting the cable that I've just fed through the very hole that I'm trying to solder it to. How stupid is that? But I've done it now. How am I going to do this? Right, this is probably an apocalyptically stupid idea because I'm just going to melt the cable. I know I am, but quick dab of solder for the positive lead and the negative lead. See how that goes. I can't see whether that's any good or not. Excuse me, I'm going to have to put that up to my very poor eyeball. That's actually not too bad. That's soldered on okay. And I've got to do similar to the positive side. And at the same time, I think what I might do is just cut that lead down a bit. It's a bit long. Okay. Probably got rid of all the tin on it now as well. How stupid. I'm not really doing a very good job of this one. Right. No. Try again. Yeah, it's not very good, but it will do for now, just while I test it. Let's have a look. Yeah, that's rubbish. Actually, that's very rubbish. Let's try again. I think that will do. How awful is that? That's the underside. Well, okay, so let's undo this lead. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to plug it into a USB supply, which I have over here to my right. So that's plugged in. Let's see what happens. On. Ooh. And there it is. Let's see if I can back up a bit for you. That is the USB. It doesn't look quite right, does it? But it doesn't. Some of those LEDs aren't straight, are they? If I can switch the lights off a bit, and you can see a bit more, but you can see, you get the idea. It is supposed to be mimicking. Let's put the light back on again. It's supposed to be mimicking sand dropping from the top of the hourglass to the bottom, and once it's filled it up, it will start all over again. There you go. Let's see what the mode switch does. We'll put the camera down. Let's put it this way. Let's press the mode switch. Press and hold. It makes it go very fast. And there you go. That is the LED electronic hourglass. Now, let me switch this off. Let me unplug it from the power and find this capacitor, because they've provided this capacitor for a reason. And I went on to Banggood and I looked at the photographs, and it's got a list of all the components there, of which this is still one. It's got to be there for a reason. As I say, possibly smoothing. So, just in case it's not performing correctly because it hasn't got that capacitor there, let's put the capacitor in, see what happens. So, let me tin that side. I think I'll use my tweezers for this. Tell you what, I need to shorten those legs. Let's just give them a bit of a trim. Otherwise it's going to be sticking out the edge of the board, and that's going to be a pain in the arse. But you would have thought that if it was supposed, you know, this is a through-hole component, obviously, not a surface mount. So you would have thought that, I broke more light on. You would have thought it was, if it was supposed to be installed, it would have the irrelevant eels. But it hasn't. Right. Oh, this is a mess. Never mind. I don't even know if this is in focus. This camera doesn't seem to autofocus very well at all. Right, that's that. And let me do the other side. Right. So that's the capacitor installed, rightly or wrongly. Let's see what happens. Plug the supply back in. Move the lights out the way so it's not overdoing it. Let's see. Might get some magic smoke, you never know. On. Upside down. Does it look any better? It doesn't look any different at all to me. Not at all. Some of those LEDs don't look too happy, and I think that's because they're not seated properly. They're still a bit wonky. I haven't got them dead flat, so I can adjust that later if I could really be bothered, and to be quite honest, I don't think I could be. But there you go. That is the electronic Hourglass kit from Banggood. You know, that's an evening gone by with a little fun thing at the end of it to show you, and more soldering practice, and a couple of spare components. What more could you possibly want?